And I think the size that you see on tape, all of that makes him a stock-up candidate. But dude's got to wrap up better. I mean, there are some... I didn't even mean that one.
Oh, that's good. You're acting like he's got 12 kids.
I comp him to Antonio Cromartie, and people, they don't know why, because he plays safety. He needs to tackle better.
There we go.
Welcome to the opening bell of the NFL Stock Exchange podcast. I'm Trevor Sikkema, Connor Rogers, joining you for a post-week 3 edition of Stock Watch. We're talking stock up, stock down prospects in the 2025 NFL draft class. But just like we did last week, we're going to give you some new names as well. Stock up, stock down, it often has to do with the names that you already know because they're at the top of the big board. But we promise that on these shows, we'll give you a player that we think is making the jump from day 3, potentially into the top 50. And then we will give you a name that you have not heard yet on this show for the 2025 NFL Draft. Connor, how you doing, my friend?
I'm good, man. I love these shows. Just going through tape, whether it's a player you haven't watched yet or a guy that is starting to look like a different player than what you saw over summer in terms of the growth. I think it's a lot of fun, and I think it's really what our show and our process is built on. And I'm sure a lot of the people that were with us for summer scouting enjoy this part, and the people that are just joining us now, it's a great way to kind of, instead of you crash coursing with us in February and March, and that's okay if you do that, you're going to know as much about all the draft guys that are talked about on TV by the time that time rolls around. So I love these episodes, man.
Me too. Welcome to all the Panthers fans that have tuned in and subscribed to the podcast already.
We are here for you.
We love you. This is your safe haven. This podcast can be your place of refuge for the next 8 to 9 months, whatever it is, until the 2025 NFL. But in all seriousness,
what are they? One roar? What are the Panthers?
No,
keep pounding. It's like the best one.
Yeah, I was gonna say, but they're keep pounding.
Keep pounding's the best one,
which is just so demoralizing in the situation they're in. You know,
gotta keep pounding.
I feel for them. I genuinely do. Because you got the team, they've sold so much like merch. And there's so much marketing around hashtag keep pounding. So now, like you're 0-2, you just bench the guy that you drafted number 1 overall that you hope was a franchise quarterback. And now your team's out here tweeting out hashtag keep pounding. You probably don't want to see anything less in the world.
But you can't change that one. It's too good.
We're going to keep pounding here on this podcast.
We're going to keep pounding. That's
with prospects.
Goal of the draft.
Pause.
Yes. Yeah.
Hold on there. All right. Stock up, stock down. What do you want to start with here?
Let's go stock up before we get into, a player that could play his way into day 2.
Yeah, all right. Glass half full kind of a guy.
And a new name.
All right. Who's your first stock up guy?
My first stock up guy is Pat Bryant, wide receiver out of Illinois. 6'3", 200 pounds. Was not on our wide receiver preview from summer, which had a ton of players. I mean, you and I we watched over 20 receivers each. I got to talk to Pat at Big Ten Media Days. And, this is a team that they've lost a lot of NFL level talent at this position over the last 2 years. And he's a guy that's been on this roster now for a couple of years and has, been there to develop and learn and not transfer just because he wasn't getting a million targets a game. And through 3 games, Pat Bryant's got 4 touchdowns, and they use him all over the place. I mean, they really do. You see him as a power slot. You see him as a perimeter target that could work down the sideline and have that body control and tracking on the deep ball. He's a pretty complete wide receiver. He's not the fastest guy in the world, right? But he's 6'3", 200 pounds. And the reality is the NFL needs more big body targets because it's tough for you if you're small to play on the outside where you can get hands on you. It's just the reality. There's only so many slot spots in the NFL. So Bryant's a guy to me that came into the season with, end of day 3 projection, maybe priority UDFA. And he's playing nothing like that. The production speaks for itself. A go-to target can go win in contested catch situations. He had a touchdown out of the slot last week where he broke about 3 tackles on his way to the end zone. So tough runner after the catch. And you love those big-bodied physical guys because you could trust them to block on the outside as well, which so many run games are asking these guys to do. So Pat Bryant's an absolute stock up through just 3 weeks for me for surprisingly, right? Undefeated Illinois team. I don't think anyone thought they'd be 3-0 out of the gate, and they are.
Yeah, I'm also surprised that you're talking about an Illinois wide receiver because, all right, all due respect to Illinois, they're not exactly like a wide receiver factory, and they just had Casey Washington, who I felt like was an underrated wide receiver last year, and Isaiah Williams leave. And so it's like, okay, you're replacing both of those guys. You figure you wouldn't hear from an Illinois wide receiver in a little bit. But just as you're kind of bringing this up with Pat Bryant, I have not watched him yet. So I went into Ultimate, and because of the beauty of PFF's organization, I've just watched like a handful of snaps while you were talking there. And what I noticed is one of the standout snaps that he has that we have organized that you can kind of click on right away. Dude, he's blocking his ass off. And I went to his grades, 89.1 run blocking grade.
Yeah.
You love that shit, man.
Very Sean McVay.
Hell yeah.
Dream receiver.
And like, I do agree with what you're saying. The X receiver is more rare today than I feel like it has been in a long time. It's why I think Nico Collins.
I was just going to say, look at Nico Collins.
It's why Nico Collins gets a ton of praise because now Nico is not just this big-bodied wide receiver. He's showing that he is a complete weapon as we've seen him develop into over the last 2 years. But Nico really got his shot early on because he was this big-bodied, strong wide receiver who could play on the line of scrimmage. He could play in the red zone. He could give you some slot reps, but he knew how to play on the sideline, and he knew how to get strong contested catch opportunities when space was at a premium. And now that's allowed him to blossom into so much more. So for Pat Bryant, him being able to block the way that he does, I mean, like, again, guys like DK Metcalf, Michael Pittman Jr., like those kinds of players who are true guys you're not afraid to put on the line of scrimmage. It's just there's not as many of them because in college, I understand this. College coaches are in the business of winning football games. They're not necessarily in the business of developing guys as much as you would want. Why would you want your best player to play him up against press if he doesn't have to?
Right.
Don't let him. Let him be the Z. Let him be in the slot. Let him be off the line of scrimmage. He can get an extra step before he gets into where the defender is. So you just don't see a lot of development in that area. So man, great shout out here. I love it. I didn't know anything about him, but I'm looking at his, it's not just a overall like one great performance either that's holding up this 89.1 run blocking grade. 87.1 run blocking grade in the first week against Eastern Illinois, 79.8 against Kansas, 79.6 against Central Michigan. And again, it's not like these are small sample sizes. He's got 58 run blocking reps.
Yeah, and it's hard for a wide receiver to pop like that in the grading system. Like it's very difficult to run the numbers up into the 70s in general.
Yes. Yeah, I think people, when they think of PFF grades, they tend to think of it like grades in school, right? Where like something like a 79 is like a C+. That's not really how the weight kind of comes out. A average-ish performance is probably something in like the mid 60s. You should think of it like that. 79.1, that's a damn good grade. Like that would be essentially a like B plus, something like that. And then you get into, low 80s to 85, probably like B plus, A minus. And then you start to get into the elite if you're in the upper 80s and into the 90s as well. Like you get A plus stuff after that. So maybe people at PFF might yell at me a little bit because it might be a little bit different, but just to give, I always try to tell people that when they look at the grades, because naturally I totally understand it. The first thing that you go to is school grades. How like a D is anything from the 60s, and nobody wanted to get D's in school. Nobody wanted to get F's and things like that. So it is, the PFF grading system's a little bit different. It's scaled a little bit different. So just to give you guys an idea of that. So love the shout out though. I got to get him. He's going on the list. He's going on the watch list. I'm going to watch him later this week. Maybe get him in that mock draft simulator. The first guy that I want to bring to the table, I'll stick with wide receiver. I'll stick with a guy who is blossoming a little bit more than just his physical abilities would allow you to believe. I'm going to talk about Isaiah Bond, the wide receiver from Texas. Yeah. I liked Bond going into the year, but people who remember summer scouting from us will remember, I think I had Bond, wide receiver 7-ish, something around there. And I watched him at Alabama, and I kind of was a little bit worried with him being an undersized guy, that he was just a speed element. And where speed is going to be the calling card of his game, it felt like everything that he did at Alabama was sort of at one speed. It was just as fast as possible. and to really be a great separator, even when you have that natural ability, you have to be able to throttle it up and down to truly create that big throwing window and maximize separation. I didn't see a ton of that at Alabama. Connor, I feel like I see that a lot at Texas now.
Oh, yeah.
Through the first couple of weeks of the season. It feels like he is understanding, all right, this is when I need to really, show off that 4.2, 4.3 speed. And these are the times where like, okay, I'm setting up a corner. I'm waiting for him to make the mistake. And then when they do make the mistake, when they do give me a blind spot or they turn their hips the wrong way, boom, all of a sudden I can attack that then with the quick acceleration, the quick footwork, and then get by him. He's got more strength and contested catch ability than one would think for his size as well, which I think is a big time plus in his game. And so when I look at wide receivers right now, he's a true stock up player because I've moved him all the way up to my wide receiver 3 ranking right now because it's Luther Bird and it's Tetairoa McMillan at the top. Those guys are still 1 and 2. But then I've got Isaiah Bond there at wide receiver 3 for this class just because he does have that element that you can't teach. And now I think he is showing that nuanced improvement of how to make that speed just a true feared weapon every single time he's on the field, which is fun to watch.
It really is. And when I made him wide receiver 3 coming out of the summer, there was definitely some projection there because it wasn't all put together on tape. But knowing his God-given talent, the speed that he has, and the movement skill, there's a difference between speed and movement skills. Isaiah Bond has both, where when you watch him go through different phases of the route, he doesn't lose speed if he doesn't want to. He could change the tempo if he wants to, but if he wants to kind of stick his foot in the ground and freeze the DB and then start working back up the field, he doesn't really need to gear down. And that's just unique movement ability to me. So I love your shout out to him because now it's turning into legitimate production at Texas, where at Alabama, it felt like he was good, right? But it felt like it was in spurts and flashes.
Yeah,
and now it just feels like it's all coming together for him in a good wide receiver class, but in an offense that is obviously very creative and very effective and run very well. But it's a big part of because of what he could do for any offense.
Yeah, 17 targets. I'm looking at it right now. He's got 17 targets. That leads the team so far. 23% like wide receiver threat, wide receiver usage. And I'm trying to see if that's what his was at Alabama. Oh, it was equal last year. It was the same thing. It was 23% at Alabama last year. So a similar emphasis in the offense, but it does feel like they're treating him more as we can get the ball in his hands in a variety of ways. And at Alabama, it felt like it was just like, hey, let's use him in explosive situations.
Right.
And he can do that still for you. But he is now, I think, ascending to even more than that, which you love to see.
All right, my next guy, and this is admittedly one of those ones this week that's more about the season compared to summer rather than just, hey, he had a huge week. Because I actually think he had his weakest game of the 3 he's played so far. But Garrett Nussmeier, the LSU quarterback.
Oh, yeah, baby.
Once again, another guy I didn't have in my quarterback rankings because he played the bowl game last year. But I don't know if you heard of Jaden Daniels. He was their quarterback last year. So this was one where he waited around. This is his opportunity rather than, transferring, leaving, transferring down and looking for a place to play. This is now his offense. And LSU gets I know controversial, but huge win over a good South Carolina team on the road.
Our producer's not going to like that.
I won't speak to anything about the game besides that. And there was ups and downs for Nussmeier in this game, right? 2 throws he had deeper shots were some of the best throws in college football this year down each sideline. He also had some plays called back and some bad decisions. I know a big penalty that wiped out an interception. But the full sample size of this year, when you look at him against USC, okay, Nicholls State, but the win over South Carolina, he's playing his way into being a draftable quarterback in a class that is extremely uninspiring. And this is somebody who hadn't had a chance before this season. So I think it was a good opportunity to talk about Nussmeier, who is a guy that looks relatively calm and collected for the most part, can push the ball down the field, not a big runner. he's going to learn through these mistakes, and he's thrown 10 touchdowns and 2 picks. Now,
right.
Once again, like there's been some plays called back, and that's benefited him. But still, 10 touchdowns, 2 picks, a couple big-time throws. He's already got 4 big-time throws on tape. The 2 big-time throws at South Carolina really stood out to me, that this is somebody that can drop the ball in the bucket and push the ball down the field when he needs to, has the arm talent to do that. He's undoubtedly a riser. I would still put him in that early day 3 bucket right now, but this is somebody that as he starts to limit those mistakes with more playing time and increases those big time throws, he can legitimately play himself into the second day of this draft in a quarterback class that, once again, it's just very uninspiring. And say what you want about the ups and downs against South Carolina, the entire package of 3 games this year, he's been one of the better quarterbacks in the country.
I would agree with you there. And when you look at his big time throws versus some other quarterbacks that are in this class and their big time throws, it does look a little bit different with Nussmeier. I think that if I remember correctly, like he's not like the biggest dude in the world. Yeah, 6'2", 200.
Right.
So the weight is fine. But 6'2", it's not like he's standing like 6'4", 6'5". But it's funny, like he throws like he is, right? And from people that I know around the LSU program, when you ask them about, Garrett Nussmeier, they talk about how like he's got a really big arm and he loves to throw it, but like sometimes it really gets him in trouble. And I felt like for the first half of this season, we were going to see him struggle a little bit of when to have the big time throw and when to not. And when it has been good for him, I think specifically there was a throw in the South Carolina game where I believe it was Kyron Lacey, their star wide receiver. I think he was in the slot and he was doing the classic Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas Jr., the slot fades that they spammed all of last year. And where he threw that ball, when he threw that ball, was sort of like Lacey wasn't even open. And he let it go and he put it at a spot where he knew that Lacey could run under it and nobody else was really going to get to it. It was at the sideline. It was pinpoint. It was beautiful. And then that touchdown throw that he threw to Lacey that was in the side of the end zone against USC, that's an opposite hash throw. Like he's throwing from the opposite hash and he's going to the end zone, to the sideline of the end zone. And he put that up in the air beautifully where, again, Lacey rose up and got it. There's no way that defender was going to get it. It was basically what you always tell quarterbacks. Put it somewhere where the receiver gets it or nobody gets it. And those are NFL throws, man.
Yes.
And it's a quarterback class that we talked about it a little bit when we did the Bryce Young episode earlier this week. And I know a lot of people in the comment section were, talking about this as well, Bryce's situation versus what Carolina can do in the 2025 NFL draft. And there's some uncertainty, right? You don't have a ton of quarterbacks, though there's a lot of names. You don't have a ton of quarterbacks that are every single week showing you like, I got NFL throws, in my arsenal that I'm going to be able to give you. Have we seen it from Carson Beck? Sure. Do we see it every week the way that we want to? No. Say the same thing with Shedeur Sanders, even with the issues along the offensive line. Quinn Ewers can give it to you, but it's a little bit, up and down with him. Jalen Milroe's got some, which we'll talk about here in a second, but he's still a little up and down. You just don't have a ton of quarterbacks that'll give you those NFL throws. And I feel like every single week that we watch Nussmeier, it's not perfect, but he'll give you NFL throws. And at least you see that from him. So, to your point, I think that he's sort of like a mid-round pick right now. Yeah, third round, fourth round, whatever you want to call it.
That's what I would say. I would call it fourth right now.
Right, but man, he is at least putting the building blocks down to, like you said, being a pretty good riser in this class, depending on how the quarterbacks even play around him this year. So I think it's a good shout out by you.
He's getting to play. And the slot fade you brought up against South Carolina, great call out. That's on 2nd and 14. So you got to realize in that drop, South Carolina has their front four pinning their ears back and bringing the heat. And he gets the snot knocked out of him, but he makes the throw. And he makes the throw with not a ton of space. And like you said, it's a perfect throw thrown before the wide receiver really even gets a step on the corner. So that's big time stuff. And you just hope that as he gets more playing time, he starts to work some of the mistakes out of his system with that opportunity. So, yeah, once again, not a perfect player, but in terms of summer, really not a lot of buzz on him besides the bowl game. Compared to his first 3 games, he is absolutely fitting of a riser in a quarterback class that is looking for risers. And I know you have your eyes on one as well.
Yeah, I do. And we'll get to him in a second. I guess this is probably a good time for me to talk about Jalen Milroe.
My alley-oop was so good, too.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
I threw it up and was expecting you to slam it down, but you have to do something first.
I was going to say, I got to pay the bills. We'll finish off the alley-oop. The TV is paused. I'm mid-air and the windmill is literally like halfway around right now, but we have to pause it, like your mom just called you. You got to pause it.
Great tease.
You got to answer the phone when mom calls, right? Well, hey, best part of football season. It's about checking out the post-game stats, right? Which wide receivers scored more than 2 touchdowns, which quarterbacks threw for less or more than 300 yards. Look, if you think that you know who's going to do what before kickoff, play Pick 6 from DraftKings. It's an official daily fantasy partner of the NFL. You download the DraftKings Pick 6 app right now. All you do is select between 2 to 6 players. Choose if they will have more or less of a certain stat. That's it. It could be passing touchdowns, passing yards, rushing touchdowns. If you think a team is going to, do something similar to the run game, for example, New England Patriots, they've been running the ball a lot. If you think that the carry spot is too low for Ramondre Stevenson, you get in on it, all right? All first-time Pick 6 players, check this out. New customers, $5 on your first Pick 6 set. You get 50 in Pick 6 credits right back to you. Download the new DraftKings Pick 6 app now. Use promo code PFF. It's promo code PFF for new customers. When you play just $5 on your first Pick 6 set, you get 50 in Pick 6 credits. Only on DraftKings Pick 6. The crown is yours. If you've got a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problems with gambling. Call 888-789-7777. Visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions do vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits expire in 6 months. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.com. pick6.draftkings.com/promos. All right, unpause the TV. Boom, it's in there. D-Wade, LeBron. There's the second part of the meme. You love to see it. Connor's hands were just up the whole time after he just, threw the alley-oop right behind him off the glass. And we're bringing it home with a little stock up.
I was just staring at the crowd.
Make for a hell of an Instagram pic. You just at that point you just got to decide what the caption is because it's already a fire photo. I'm going to talk about Jalen Milroe from Alabama. And I do think that Jalen Milroe is a stock-up player. Now, I do understand this. The completion percentage is still lower than you would want for Jalen Milroe. The adjusted completion percentage for him last year was a 72.4. This year, it is a 70.4. But a lot of what you love about Jalen Milroe does still exist. He's got those big time explosive throws that he can hit on you. 9.1% big time throw percentage last year, which was huge. That is a huge number. That was like Kyler Murray MVP year type of number. This year it's a little bit lower, but it's still very high. 6.7% big time throws through a couple of weeks. And the turnover where he plays, though, a little bit lower.
Yeah.
2.8% last year. Just 1.4% this year. So when you look at the average depth of target, the average depth of target's up a little bit. But I mean, it's pretty dang high. It went from 13.6 last year to now 14.2 this year. The passing yards per attempt up from 9.9 last year to 11.1 this year. So dude is not afraid to uncork it. He's got 8 passing touchdowns, no interceptions, but 4 big time throws and 1 turnover worthy play. Connor, the reason why I think that Milroe is a stock up type of a player is because not only do I believe that he is now consistently bringing that high level of play year after year to the field. Like it wasn't just like, it was just kind of like Alabama's offense last year. They hit lightning in a bottle with Milroe once he became the full-time starter. That was about it. He is playing basically the same way he was last year, and I would say even a little bit better from him. Is the consistency where we need it to be at an NFL level? No. But my point about Milroe is this. If this is the baseline of what we are looking at, in a quarterback class that is kind of uninspiring at the top right now, he gives you high-end explosive passing ability while also giving you a high floor as a true dual threat rushing option, right?
Yep.
So while we sit here and we talk about all of these pocket passer quarterbacks and what they could be, Milroe's over here like, I can do both for you. The thing about Milroe is we just need him to not throw turnover-worthy plays. And he's doing it at a lower clip than he was last year. It's early. They're not in SEC play yet. I understand that. But to me, it's almost like, a rise up via sinking down, and like, hey, we had a lot of faith in a handful of quarterbacks in this quarterback class, and none of them have really taken that reins of QB1 or QB2. And Milroe just continues to show that he at least has the tools that you want to bet on for an NFL quarterback. Rushing tools, we already know all those about. And then this past week, holy cow. I mean, he was putting on a flamethrower show with some of those big throws that he was making. And all I'm saying is, it's not perfect, but I watched Jalen Milroe make those throws, and I go, we got quarterbacks people are trying to talk up in this class that can't make those throws.
Yep.
Not as many as he's made over the last 2 years. It's got to be more consistent for him. No doubt about it. But I think that, to me, he's got to be a riser in this class because of everything that he could bring to the table.
It's hard to argue against that, right? Just when you look at the skill set package that he has, he's somebody that the running is legit creating your own yards. It's not just I'm fast. Oh, there's no defender in front of me. Let me grab these 8 yards and get out of bounds. Like he's really creative. He's a playmaker. He can genuinely rip off 70-yard rushing performances like it's nothing. And you're right, Trevor. The arm talent is all there to keep growing and making huge plays. So Milroe feels like the guy that is going to be a bit of a enigma this draft class because it's not always pretty, but you feel like his highs are worth betting on. So, right? Like he feels like that because I'll be honest here on this show. When you watch Carson Beck, Shedeur Sanders, Quinn Ewers, there's some kind of floor and ceiling there with those guys.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel that way with Jalen Milroe. I don't know what the floor and ceiling is yet because the spectrum is so wide of the variance you get with him, right? Like that's why he's polarizing.
Yeah, but I obviously like the college football playoff last year. Like I think the 2 games in which he struggled the most as a passer were against Georgia and then Michigan, right? I mean, it's 2 big games, which
NFL players galore,
which sucks. Like obviously, like those are the 2 big games. Those are the ones that you want to actually play your best. So it's worth noting, but it's not like week to week Jalen Milroe was this crazy, like, oh my God, he's great, but then he's horrible type of a player.
True.
He just didn't play well against the 2 toughest tests that he had last year in Georgia and Michigan. So to me, that's why I think he's a stock up player. I'm not sitting here and telling you need these QB1 or that he's going to go number 1 overall, but in a class, again, that we're waiting for somebody to really show us something that's at least just worth investing in. Show us that you're not hitting your ceiling right now in college football. Color me intrigued about Jalen Milroe. That's kind of what I'm saying here in this class.
My last guy in the standard generic stock up, names we've talked about before we, you're going to get through some more players and some players we haven't talked about. Jalen Walker, the edge off-ball linebacker for Georgia.
Yes.
Very interesting player. This is someone we discussed on summer shows. He is very interesting in a way that he's kind of an off-ball linebacker, but the reality is, and I felt this way over the summer, and I feel this way through a couple more games this season, his best reps are when he's working downhill as
he's an edge rusher.
He is every bit of an edge rusher.
Kirby, we know you watch the show.
It is beyond frustrating as an
Put
NFL
him on the
evaluator.
ball.
It's crazy. He genuinely splits time between being an off-ball linebacker and an edge rusher. Like, just for the actual data of it this year, I mean, he's played, it looks like, off the ball in the box 37 times. He's played on the ball defensive line 48 times. It's really a very clearly defined split. Now, I will say as well, they do blitz him as an off-ball linebacker. He's just so athletic, right? Mm-hmm. That's the thing. He's so athletic that he can get narrow through gaps. But his instincts and overall, reading everything in front of him as an off-ball linebacker is not NFL level, when you watch him simply rush the passer, you get excited about him as an NFL player. It's such a different experience where, I mean, I totally agree with you, Trevor. He is every bit an edge rusher in my eyes. Not that he only plays edge rusher, but you look at the pass rush tape just in week 3 against Kentucky. He had 18 pass rush snaps. He had a win rate of 33.3%. So 2 of those, he hit the quarterback. 5 were just standard hurries. And some of them are delayed blitzes or stunts, but some of them are legit. He's on the edge and he could dip his shoulder and turn into the pocket and win with speed and has change of direction and has some power. So Jalen Walker is somebody that I bet the evaluation for him as an NFL player will be more kind to him than how he's viewed as a college player, which is very rare, but he fits that bucket all the way because it is so easy, I think, for an NFL team to look at what he does at Georgia, where they are trying to win a championship every year. They're not always thinking, what's the best way we can give you numbers to go to the NFL? Trayvon Walker didn't even have numbers to go to the NFL.
Right.
So that defense isn't geared to give you numbers. But Jalen Walker, to me, is a legit pass rusher that also has to play off-ball linebacker. And I know some people really liked him over summer as a projection, maybe even borderline first rounder. I thought he was a nice day 2 player over what I watched this summer. I'm looking at the pass rush ability and see a guy that can play his way into the first round for sure.
Well, the first step explosiveness for him is the most impressive part, right? The way that he is built, the weight that he carries. I mean, like he can explode off of the ball.
And he's dense, like you said. He probably could play at 250.
Right. What do they have him listed
245.
At? Oh, yeah. I mean, he could play at 250, 255, I think, pretty easily. And then, you got no problem playing on the edge at that size. It's a little bit lighter, but I mean, I think that's totally fine, especially when you look at his reps and see, again, how dense he is, how he takes contact. I mean, I think that it's totally fine for him. The part that sucks is I totally understand. Look, Georgia's trying to get the most out of this athlete whenever they can, and they're trying to win football games. He's not going to develop pass rush moves like this. He's not going to develop good pad level, and he's not going to understand how to, not only come up with a pass rush plan and have moves, but also counters. Okay, well, how do you get off a block because that's another thing about Jalen Walker is right now, if I don't watch him win with the first step, or if he doesn't convert speed to power into a bull rush that's just imposing on whatever offensive lineman he's going up against, I don't really see him break that block very quickly. And he's not really going to if he's sitting here playing off-ball linebacker as much as he is on-ball linebacker. So that's the part that is, we joke, but genuinely frustrating as an NFL draft analyst is I agree with you. I think the outlook for him is going to be much higher from an NFL perspective than it is the production that we're going to see from him in college, just because I almost think that he's going to play a completely different position in the NFL. But, I guess we'll have to see what the league evaluates him like. My next stock up guy that I want to go to. Do we talk about Keon Sabb in summer scouting? Was he on your safety list?
Let me double check. I don't think so.
So
no.
So Sabb was at Michigan, and he was like a 4 or 5 star recruit at Michigan. And I believe when Rod Moore announced that he was coming back, it was kind of like, all right, Keon kind of had to leave if he wanted to get consistent playing time.
Yeah.
So he goes down to Alabama, and he's playing, I think, really, really well, and played really well this past week. Now, when you watch him, he, I think, has the size for the position. 6'1", 6'2", like I think he's somewhere in the middle there, maybe like just over 6'1", 205 pounds. He is somebody who, like, you watch the tape, you watch the broadcast, and he stands out because I think he is a bigger safety player. The way that he has been able to play the robber role for Alabama over the middle of the field has been very, very impactful. He's got, let me make sure I got this right, for forced incompletions. 2 forced incompletions, but he's got 2 interceptions already. And they came in the first week against Western Kentucky, but it was really impressive plays because then his forced incompletions, he had 1 against USF, and then he had 1 against Wisconsin this past week as well. So he's somebody who really knows how to make plays on the ball, specifically because I think his downhill speed is really, really good. Like I think that when he is coming from depth enough, whether, I don't know if you're going to want to play him in single high situations, but certainly if you've got him in some sort of whatever your cover 3 looks, whether it's traditional cover 3, which not a lot of teams run anymore, or like a quarter half cover 3, or even just a 2 deep safety look. If you give him the freedom and the confidence to play downhill a little bit, I think he is a guy who can own the seam for you, can take away post players, can drive on in-breaking routes. Like he has shown that he is already really successful at that. And we didn't get a ton from him. Last year he played when Rob Moore was out, and so we got a little bit more than we expected. But this year's his first year is like, okay, I am a full-time starter for the full season. It's my secondary. I'm back here. And he's doing a really great job. The area that he needs to, and I think his play and coverage and his speed and I think the size that you see on tape, all of that makes him a stock up candidate. But dude's got to wrap up better. I mean, there are some. I didn't even mean that one.
Oh, that's good. You're acting like he's got 12 kids. Listen, man. Just figure it out. He's like, I don't have any kids.
I comp him to Antonio Cromartie, and people, they don't know why. Because he plays safety. And I was just like, hey, you got to look into it. He needs to tackle better.
There we go.
Because the first couple of weeks that I'm watching him, the pursuit angles, they're just way over aggressive. I mean, sometimes he looks like a cartoon, where you you overrun somebody and then the legs are spinning and you're not going anywhere because you're trying to go the opposite direction. That almost looks a little bit what I'm watching here for the first couple of weeks. Now, I will say the Wisconsin tape, which is the most recent tape, looked a little better. He looked a little bit more honed in. He was a little more patient when it came to lining guys up and getting them on the ground. But that is just that it's something that I'm going to be watching throughout the season, because do we have another Kalen Bullock situation here where I love what you could be as a coverage guy over the middle, but I've got worries about what you could be as a run defender. Hope that's not it. I hope he can round out his game as the season goes on, because if he can, we already talked about what a great safety class this is. He can make it even better if he continues to play the way that he does.
A great call out by you, especially in a deep safety class where a guy like that can get lost in the first couple of weeks. We've talked about how deep this group is. Did you have any more before we go to our categories?
Oh, yeah. I did want to shout out stock up for Shavon Revel, the corner from ECU. I guess it's maybe not a stock up as in like we're learning something we didn't know. But
he's just awesome.
He got an interception this past week, and it was, coming from trail technique, coming from the opposite side of the line of scrimmage. It's a crossing route. He cuts it easily. He puts the ball in one hand like he is legitimately like Antonio Cromartie out there. And it's just, he immediately becomes a playmaker. He's so damn talented. He is so talented. He has got unreal size-speed combination. The ball skills, I think, are there for him. He just needs to continue. I think we said this during summer scouting. Like, he's just got to get more of a coverage feel. Like, sometimes he does not know when the ball is coming to him. Like, sometimes he's just focused on, all right, I'm focused on the guy in front of me. I'm guarding him. I'm covering him and everything. And it's like he just has no idea when the ball is coming his way. You get a little bit more instincts here. And we're talking about a guy who could potentially be a top 20 pick in this draft. I really do. Even for as raw as some other parts of his tape is, he's got special talent that you bet on at the NFL level. I really do believe that.
I don't disagree at all. I mean, it's all there. I would say the only thing that will be interesting with him, and it's not that interesting. How old is he? I need to look at this because I know he's been there for a couple years after he transferred from Lewisburg College. I don't think it matters too much with him because he's so big and so athletic. But it would just be one thing I would wonder if he was an older prospect, like a 23, 24-year-old prospect. I'll try to get the data on that. I'm going to say it's not going to like hurt him by a round. It's not what I'm saying. It's just something that'll be evaluated for somebody that, technically could have left last year. He's just flying. It's been, the tape was really good when you watched last year. It's already been a hot start to him this year. If he wants to go to the Senior Bowl, he can go to the Senior Bowl and go the Quinyon Mitchell kind of route. And let's not forget, though, 2 years ago, Devin Witherspoon, it was already out before the Senior Bowl. He was in the top 20 of mock drafts, and that was a wrap. And then he didn't go, and
he's out.
He went top 10. So you just never know. Corner specifically, top 5, and good pick. Corner specifically can fly up the board unlike any other position at times, it feels like. Because it's like if their name isn't being called, they're probably doing something right. That's why it's that kind of position very often. Yeah. So great call with Shavon. I think it's Revel. I heard a broadcaster say it that way after the pick. We will get confirmation on that.
We'll make sure that we get it. That's our new Savanaia, or somebody sent us the pronunciation of it.
I know.
We'll get it. We promise. It'll be a journey. You guys are on it here with us. Before we get to our prospect that we think can make the jump from before we do that, I did want to shout out. So I brought up Antonio Cromartie's name, and I wanted to make sure I gave credit. I saw that first for Revel, if we're saying it like that. That comp, that Cromartie comp, I saw that first from Luke Easterling. I think he tweeted about it, and I was like, I thought about Tariq Woolen just because of like the size-speed combination. But then I looked it up, and I was like, Cromartie actually could fit as well because I think he's got really good ball skills, and that's what Cromartie was known for, at least, on the field. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp.
And off the field.
As an adult, do you make time to learn new things? Do you make time to learn new things as often as you would like, or was that something that was lost in childhood? Kids, they're always learning, they're always growing, but as adults, sometimes we lose that curiosity. Therapy, it's something that can help you reconnect with that sense of wonder, because that going back to school feeling and era, honestly, it can come at any age. I'm somebody who, I've said this on this podcast before, I've been doing therapy for over a year and a half. I truly love it. It started with something that I really needed help kind of getting over, talking to somebody professional and working through some things. And now it is a way that I am able to kind of like self-tune myself, if you will, like it's just, it's ways to kind of check myself and how I'm thinking and why I'm thinking a certain way. And it's allowed me to really put my best foot forward in basically every single aspect of my life. So I absolutely love it. Couldn't recommend it enough. If you guys think about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. You just fill out a brief questionnaire with them, and you get matched with a licensed therapist that you can switch therapists at any time as well, with no additional charge. It's very, very convenient. You can rediscover your curiosity with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/NFLSE to get 10% off your first month. That is BetterHelp, HELP.com/NFLSE. Connor, who is your guy that you got potentially going from day 3 to the top 50?
I'll call it day 3 to day 2, but you never know. And it's so funny to me before you were like, I can't believe you're bringing up an Illinois wide receiver here. And I'm going to do it again because
we got another one.
Zakhari Franklin now plays for Illinois.
Oh,
what a weird run for Zakhari Franklin. He's someone that a couple years ago burst onto the draft radar because he was dominating at, I believe it was UTSA.
Yeah, UTSA is where he was most of the time.
He had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons for UTSA. And during that span from 2021 to 2022, this dude caught 27 touchdowns. And one of the games he did it against was against Illinois. Then he goes to Ole Miss in 2023, and I'll raise my hand. I was one of those people that was like, Zakhari Franklin's going to have 1,400 yards and another 15 touchdowns in Lane Kiffin's offense. He kind of disappears. He really doesn't play. He doesn't do anything.
He didn't play much.
He didn't play. Then he goes to Illinois, and this is an older prospect. Transfers to Illinois, and through 3 games, he's got almost 200 yards, 16 catches, but the tape is insane. Insane. I mean, he has, I think, the best catch in college football, and I don't know if it's going to be topped this year. A one-hander down the sideline. His shoulder pad is almost pulled out of his jersey, and he's in an arm bar, and he just sticks out the other arm, and the ball just sticks to his hand, and he's in bounds, and just tucks it in. It was a beautiful deep catch. But then you watch the routes, and 11 of his 16 catches have gone for first downs. He is a gifted glider. I mean, the routes are beautiful. He knows how to get open. I did a tape breakdown on just this offense in general for NBC, and I was because we do a lot of Big Ten stuff, and I was blown away. Not only Luke, like shout out to Luke Altmaier, who's taken some really nice steps this year. After people were probably like, I can't believe he's going to be their starter again this year, but this wide receiver duo is quietly one of the better ones, if not in the Big Ten in the country, between Pat Bryant and Zakhari Franklin, because Franklin's found it again, and he's just such a gifted route runner. He's got crazy hands. He's a playmaker all around, and he can play inside and outside. So, my favorite catch of the year so far, but he's been so much more than that, and the tape does not lie. For a team that, once again, I don't think this team wants to drop back and throw it 50 times a game. So I don't know if him and Bryant will have these crazy numbers. No, Bryant's got the touchdowns already, but both these guys look so good. But Franklin is a guy to me. I talked about with Bryant, like he's probably a priority UDFA. Now he's playing his way early day 3. I think Franklin is so talented, even for an older prospect, that it wouldn't shock me coming into the year, day 3 grades. He's somebody that genuinely goes in the 3rd round, end of the 2nd round, because he's already had 2,000-yard seasons, and he looks awesome again.
Shout out to Brett Bielema.
I know, man.
Building it at Iowa. Holy hell.
He's hitting the portal. You really do got to tip your cap to this program, because like it's Illinois. It's not a layup to go get guys, and they hit the portal. They're while developing their own talent. I think, and there's some bias here. This is my first year I got to do Big Ten media and sit down with a lot of these coaches one-on-one, a lot of these players one-on-one. He's a lost art in college football because it's just authentic. So many, and I get it. Like some guys got to get up there and they got to be a politician in our facilities and this and, rah, 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 and all this stuff. He's been in the NFL before for a lot of time. He's been at all different stops of college. He just tells it like it is. And I think it's kind of rubbed off on this program in a very unique way that they just are who they are, and they're not going to go out there and be something they're not and pound their chest. And it's gotten them a 3-0 start. And I'm genuinely rooting for this program because of the way they carry themselves.
Love it. Love it. Gotta watch the Illinois receivers.
Franklin's legit. He's legit, man. He always has been, but it's good to see him find it again after a down year at Ole Miss.
For sure. My guy that I'm talking about, we'll get back on producer Ryan's good side with this one.
If the show gets posted.
South Carolina, yeah, right. South Carolina's got the best defensive line in the country.
Oh, it's stupid good.
They do. Dylan Stewart, their 5-star freshman's was unreal through the first 2 weeks, and then struggled against some of the veteran offensive tackles from LSU, but
NFL tackles.
Yeah, absolutely. They got TJ Sanders in the middle. They got Tonka Hemingway in the middle. And
one of my favorite names in the entire country.
Tonka Hemingway? Yeah, it's pretty
Tonka
good.
Hemingway? You got the name of a Tonka truck mixed with Hemingway was a novelist. I want to get that right.
Oh.
I didn't want to call him something a little bit off, but
is that the correct term?
Ernest Hemingway was an American novelist.
Nice. You did it.
Tonka Hemingway.
Yeah. So yeah, he's violent, but
and he's got the brains.
Yeah, he's smooth with his words. The 4th guy on that defensive line is somebody that I did not know at all going into the season. He is a 5th-year transfer player from Georgia Tech, Kyle Kennard, and he's been absolutely balling this season. Yes, he was the one in the LSU game who pushed Garrett Nussmeier down, and it was the reason why they didn't have the pick 6 that probably would have won them the game.
That's why I called it controversial.
Listen,
the game.
The call was soft as shit.
It's not good.
Nussmeier sold it, Give him his credit.
He did.
Took the acting classes, did what he needed to do as a quarterback. That's also, underrated part of being a pro quarterback, being able to sell that stuff. Sometimes you just got to do what you got to do for the team. You talk about being a politician. Sometimes what you got to do. Garrett Nussmeier, he's a pro. He's a pro, even in that regard as well. But I felt bad for Kyle Kennard because it has been a really good season for him. And I thought it was a really nice game against LSU. And those 2 offensive tackles that we just talked about are really good, those future NFLers. And Kennard he's been balling this season. He's been playing very, very well. And as a 5th-year player, I think he's got a lot going for him. So he's about 6'4", 6'5", depending on what the official measurements are going to be. He's around 255 pounds. He has an explosive first. Connor, I'm not going to lie. I watched his tape and I went, why don't we know you? Like, why am I looking you up for the first time right now? Why were you not one of these players that we were supposed to know during summer scouting? And people might yell at us in the comments. They might be like, yo, we knew about Kyle Kennard and you guys didn't. What are you doing? You're slacking. It's true. We got to be better. But I just don't know how this guy wasn't on higher on people's radars. Now, I understand played for 4 years at Georgia Tech, but like I'm watching the tape and I go, how am I learning about this guy for the first time? First and foremost, you talk about John Ledyard calls them the pillar of pass rushing, right? When you talk about evaluating defensive linemen, I love the way that he says it because it rolls off the tongue. It's a great way to say it. The first pillar of pass rushing is explosiveness. It's your first step. How do you get off the ball? Can you get off the ball fast enough at an NFL level? Kyle Kennard does that. He also then, I thought that when I saw the first rep, I went, okay, is this guy just going to be speed? He doesn't really know what he's doing. Is that why I haven't heard of him before? No. Dude, the second play of the game, he hits this sick little like cross chop that I'm like, okay, all right, you know what you're doing here. Then I watch him hit a club rip combination. I see him do like a two-handed swipe. I saw him try to hit a ghost move and a dip around the outside shoulder. Like, this guy's got the bag. So he is somebody who is a perfect candidate for this accolade that we give out every single week because he has the tools. I just don't think the eyeballs were on him. Really fast hands, plus arm length as well for being around 6'5". I think the first step turns into good top speed up the arc as well, where he can bend a little bit too. I was really, really impressed with Kyle Kennard. And again, whoever the defensive line coach is at South Carolina, I need to look up his name. Actually, I knew who it was. I just forget his name.
Send him the Shaq meme.
Like, I was not familiar with you. For what you did with TJ Sanders last year, for what you were doing with Dylan Stewart and what you were doing with Kyle Kennard, I was not familiar with your game, buddy. And you are doing a phenomenal job coaching defensive line in South Carolina because I really do think that it's one of the best in the country. Now, some weaknesses from Kennard. You know, he rushes from a 2-point stance a lot, so he naturally rushes a little bit high. He's not as confident attacking the inside shoulder as he is the outside shoulder. Would love to see him develop. Like, if he developed an inside spin, oh, dude, it'd be nasty because he already has like a chop rip move that he likes to go to attack the outside shoulder. If he really got an inside spin move down, he already does the chop with regularity. So if you are about to chop and the offensive lineman just thinks, okay, he's about to rip me next, I'm going to keep riding him to the outside shoulder, I'm going to get him out of the pocket, and you chop him and then boom, the elbow comes around and you spin, you're going to have these offensive tackles like grasping at nothing, trying to hang on to. So need a little inside move from him, and I think that we're really cooking here. And then I also just think he needs counters. He's got a lot of initial pass rush moves. Let's develop some counters when you get locked up a little bit, get off the blocks a little bit quicker. But Kyle Kennard from South Carolina playing really well. He's got his highest pass rush grade of his career so far, 82.6. Before, it was last year, it was 73.7. So you could see that he's developing. He's getting better and better, which you love to see that progression as well. But he's playing really good football, 18.4% pass rush win percentage. He's already got 14 pressures. He's already got 5 sacks on the season. So Kyle Kennard, man, big fan of his. I think that he could be a riser potentially even in the top 50.
I'm excited to watch him. I mean, just hearing that, watch him specifically because I've watched this group collectively, but to stand out like that and kind of get lost with all the talent that's around him, it's big time stuff. All right, my player that we have not talked about on this show.
Yep.
I'm going to go small school here and go with left tackle Charles Grant from William and Mary. And shout out to Devin Jackson, who really does a great job finding these small school guys. And
Devin's awesome.
Devin is awesome. Real D_Jackson, if you want to take a look at his timeline. He's all over small school players all the time. And Charles Grant is someone that he comes into this year. I know the Senior Bowl has tweeted out that he's got arms well over 35 inches. And you turn on the tape, and it's small school tape, but he is a great athlete. He's a great athlete. Now, we'll see if he can get a little bigger. He's around 290 pounds right now. I think you'd like to get him up to 305. But the tape is exciting with Charles Grant when you watch him. And yeah, it's William and Mary, but what he's asked to do in the run game, get out of the gate and move and erase linebackers, it looks like varsity against Pee Wee. It really does. When he gets his hands on linebackers, they don't really know what to do. They're kind of just a dead body immediately. And the thing that makes it special is that his first step off the ball is NFL caliber and more. I think he'll be an above average athlete in terms of how he tests short area. So Grant's a guy to me that I think he's in line for a Senior Bowl invite, and I can't wait to watch him against the big boys because what he's doing on the small school tape right now, the feet and pass protection. He's a really explosive athlete. I love what he could do as a zone blocker in the run game. He's got to go to his own scheme at his size, and it matches his movement skill. Like, you put him in Mike McDaniel's run game, this guy's a dream. So, and I think, listen, we haven't talked about him on this show. If he goes to the Senior Bowl and he rocks out, like, this could be a third-round pick for the offensive line out of William and Mary. That's the kind of athlete we're talking about here.
It's awesome. I don't know anything about him.
The arm length, like, usually, Trevor, we look at guys like this and we're like, damn, 290, small school. Like, if he doesn't get through the process at 305, 310, and, he might have to play guard. When you got 35-plus inch arms, like, no, you just got to beef up and you can play tackle. That's the exciting part for him. He's about 6'4", 290, but 35-plus inch arms. If he gets up to 305 for the process, this is an NFL tackle potentially.
There is so much that you can get away with, if you will, if you win the arm length battle that much.
At that kind of athleticism.
Right. It's just your movement skills are going to be great. You're going to be able to get because length, obviously you want to be able to hit landmarks, certainly in pass protection, because you want to be able to get your feet underneath you when you're going up against good speed rushers. But when you have longer arms, it gives you a little bit more margin for error of hitting that landmark exactly when you need to, because if your hands are up and active, you still might be able to make contact with that pass rusher as they're sort of coming to hit that landmark to meet you there to bend around the edge. So yeah, I got to watch this player. There's no doubt about it. And shout out to Devin, obviously does really fantastic work. One more player that I want to talk about, my name that I haven't brought up yet here on this show, but last order of business here. If you guys are out there, you got a small business and you're hiring, you want to find quality professionals that are right for whatever role you're trying to fill, you got to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and free. Obviously, at PFF, we do a ton of hiring here and there. It's not just about finding somebody who can fill a role because their resume says they could fill a role. You've got to find the right people to be able to do it. That's why, especially in a small business, it is so important. LinkedIn, it's not just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals that you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a role, but might be open to the perfect fit, right? And I think sometimes those are the best employees. So this is a big plus. In a given month, 70% of LinkedIn users don't even visit any other leading job site. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're simply looking in the wrong place. 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours on LinkedIn. Hire a professional like a professional on LinkedIn. They know that all small businesses, they're wearing a lot of hats that, you might not have the time or the resources to try to make the right hire that you really need to. That's why 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/stock. It's linkedin.com/stock. Post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. The last guy I'm bringing to the table, Harold Fannin Jr. from Bowling Green. You heard of him?
No, but Bowling Green popped off 2 weeks ago.
They did indeed, as did Harold Fannin Jr., their tight end, who, good football player. Shout out to Max Chadwick and Dalton Wasserman, the dudes who are doing the PFF College show. Obviously, Dalton does the grades release show with me as well, but they do a fantastic job covering college football in every single way that you could imagine. If you guys love this podcast because of the prospect talk that we have, please go watch and subscribe their show, the PFF College Show. They do a really great job covering the basically everything in the country and the most important news and all that kinds of stuff. So Harold Fannin Jr., they put him on my radar. Junior from Bowling Green, 6'4", 230 pounds. Now I know what you're saying, Trev, small. Can't even host the pod. What are we talking about? We're still talking about a good football player, okay? A little bit of background for Harold Fannin Jr. 0-star, count them, 0-star linebacker recruit from the 2022 recruiting class. In high school, he played both safety and wide receiver, but he was also the punt returner and kick returner. He did basically everything. Also played basketball in high school, which you love to see the multi-sport background. Bowling Green was his only offer out of high school, and it was sort of a, we're going to bring you on as an athlete. We're going to figure out what you are. Well, he played in 12 of 13 games as a true freshman. He had one start, so he wasn't starting the whole time, but he played in every single game. And then he had 8 starts last year, produced really, really well. He's a good football player, man. Love the mentality when the ball was in his hands. He just immediately becomes a playmaker. I think he's got decent bursts from his size. If you watch him, yeah, he doesn't have the wiggle that some of these other, more athletic tight ends do. So changing direction is a little bit tougher for him, but he's really balanced when it comes to contact. He's strong at the catch point. I mentioned that first step explosiveness gives him some of those yards after catch as well. He feels like that move tight end that a lot of teams are looking for. They could play in the slot. You could play him off the line of scrimmage. You could even play him as an X receiver and be pretty comfortable with how he's going to go up against press, against outside cornerbacks. But the other thing is, he's a little bit smaller, right? 230 pounds. He is competitive as hell as a blocker, especially as a run blocker. Pass blocking, okay. The pass blocking grades aren't great because, again, there's a little bit of lateral stiffness with him. If you're asking him to shuffle and kind of move side to side, he's slower doing that. That's why the pass blocking grades are going to be much worse. But when he can line dudes up, and he does so pretty well in run blocking, whether it's coming from the slot or even on the outside as an outside receiver, he does so pretty well. And I think he's got an 81.9 pass blocking grade on the season, if I remember correctly. So, I think that it's a interesting tight end class. And there's a lot of names to know here. But Harold Fannin Jr. from Bowling Green remains a name to know because of how productive he has been already this season, because I think he's got decent straight line athleticism. And again, because of how competitive that he is as a blocker. So you could use him like at the top of the triangle in trips, or you could use him to the outside when you're kind of throwing a quick screen to somebody who might be in motion, or a running back who's wheeling out of the backfield, something like that. I just think that he can give you a lot of good reps, even if he is more limited as an agile athlete. So Harold Fannin Jr. also wears number 0. So
gotta look at the part. You gotta appreciate a guy that looks the part. 0 for what's you're describing as an athletic move tight end. That's an A+ football aesthetic, in my opinion.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Big fan of that. Love it. We had a lot of players added to the list today on today's show, which is the goal of today's show.
Oh, I forgot to mention 93.7 receiving grade for Harold Fannin Jr. so far this season. 93.7. This is a tight end, and he's getting 32.8 of a threat percentage. How often?
It feels like he is the offense.
He is the offense.
Which is fine. That's great. Go full Colorado State Trey McBride. I dare you, Bowling Green. Do it all year. It's worked out great for Trey McBride's development.
I looked it up the other day because, dude, get this. So Malik Neighbors, this past week for the Giants, he had 18 targets on 28 total throws from Daniel Jones.
Yeah.
63% threat percentage. 63%.
It's utterly absurd at an NFL game.
It is the highest single game threat percentage in PFF history. Nuts. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, because you said Trey McBride, is because I went back and I was like, did Trey McBride ever have anything close to like the 60 when he was at Colorado State?
Yeah.
He had a handful of games in the 40s.
Okay.
And then I think he had 1 or 2 games in the 50s, but he didn't get to the 60s. So Neighbors' game this past weekend for the Giants was still better than like the Trey McBride games.
And it shouldn't change. It shouldn't change.
It should increase.
It should increase. I'm really fascinated what the Giants' offense becomes if teams just start tripling Malik Neighbors.
Every throw that doesn't go to Malik is simply malpractice.
Is a waste of everyone's time.
Let us know what you thought of the names that we brought to the show today, whether it was the stock up guys, the stock down. I guess end of the show, we do talk about stock up, stock down. My 2 stock down guys, 2 quarterbacks that I had high hopes for going in the season, Graham Mertz, Jalon Daniels. I'm watching Jalon Daniels at Kansas, and he started off well, but the first opponent Kansas played was terrible. It was not at their competition level. And then you watch the last 2 weeks.
FCS East?
Yeah, dude. And
FCS North?
Yeah, essentially. And Daniels he doesn't have the juice for the throws. And it makes me sad because
I think it's the injury history.
I mean, he had those back injuries, man.
That's what I'm thinking.
I wonder if it just drained him, because I'm watching him this year, and he doesn't even have the same zip on the throws that he had last year when he was healthy.
It hasn't been pretty. The turnovers are outrageous.
Yeah, so it's unfortunately got to be a stock down, even though it's early. I know it's a little bit of a stock down for Jalon Daniels. Daniels in this quarterback class. And then Graham Mertz as well. Really struggled against Miami. Actually had a better game against Texas A&M. But the problem with Mertz is that he was so, how do I say this? Like stoic in the pocket, it felt. He was very like poetic and kind of like how he went about his reads and how the ball was coming out of his hands and the timing and everything. And he doesn't have a super big arm either. And the two areas that you really wanted to see from him this year is, one, if he's not going to have a huge arm for you, if he's going to be a lower ADOT type of a player, he's got to be an assassin with his accuracy. Like he's got to have Bo Nix, Oregon type of accuracy numbers where, I mean, he's just hitting you at over an 80% adjusted completion percentage clip. And the ball placement has not been as good this year. And then you throw in the other aspect that you were really hoping, certainly me, was hoping to see better from him in this season is throwing it deep. Because last year we got really great risk-averse play from him where he was able to just keep things on schedule, keep things going. He was an accurate player, but he just didn't really throw the ball deep. Certainly against Miami, he had multiple opportunities to do that. Poor deep throws, both of those times. And I think one deep throw that he had, no, he had a couple of deep throws, I think, against Texas A&M. It just, again, he does not look like he took the steps that he needed to in that direction. If we see in the second half of the season and he starts becoming this player that can really hit deep, great. But he's got DJ Lagway on his heels now. And I don't even know how much longer that Graham Mertz is going to be the starting quarterback for the Gators. So if you were to tell me that, okay, let's say they go to Lagway soon as the full-time quarterback, Mertz is nowhere near the QB4 label that I gave him in hopes that he was going to take that step up in being a deep passer. He did not prove that at this point in time. So both of those guys had hopes for them that they were going to continue to take steps in the right direction. I think they've unfortunately both done the opposite. So a little bit of stock down for those guys.
Good stuff from you, though, still. An update on those guys. I'll try to do a little bit more stock down as we're going to be a full month into the season soon. It's hard. It is, but those are fair. I mean, you could seeing what someone is physically this time of year is very evident, rather than like, hey, if I'm waiting for a guy to break out and it's just not happening 6 weeks into the season, then it's just not happening. So we'll get there for more of those.
So let us know what you thought of all the names that we brought to the show today. Whether it was stock up, the new names, the day 3 to top 50, whatever it is, let us know. Best way to do that it's youtube.com / at NFL Stock Exchange. There we go. I've said it a million times, Trevor. You should be better at this. The comments that you guys were able to show us when we did the Bryce Young episode were incredible. Getting to read all those opinions about what you guys thought with what his stock was and all that. It was phenomenal. Most of you, Connor, I think from reading most, if not all of the comments, I think the consensus feels like Bryce's trade value is like a 6th, 7th round pick, something like that.
Yeah, or depending what you watch, it could be Matt Stafford.
There were some people that I will say too, the team that I feel like was consensus that y'all would want to see Bryce on was either Miami or the Rams.
Which
I think those are
totally logical.
The Raiders are also in there. There weren't as many Raiders, but I think most people were saying, hey, Miami Dolphins or Los Angeles Rams. So we got that. But let us know in the comments once again what you thought of these players. If you are not on YouTube, hit us up on Twitter and Instagram at Tampa Bay Trey, at Connor J. Rogers. We will be back with you next week. I think back to the regular schedule, but pops off and
we'll see.
Every time. It kills me every single time.
Good.
Connor, do you have anything else outside of that brilliant impersonation before
I'd like to sign off on that.
Okay. All right. He's signing off on that. I'm Trevor Sikkema. That is Connor Rogers. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening to the NFL Stock Exchange podcast. We will see you next week.